The last time you asked a chatbot a question, did you get truth or did you get a friend? Did it give you the unvarnished facts or did it give you a pleasant, confident, and agreeable version of what it thought you wanted to hear? We stand at the edge of a new kind of wilderness. We're learning to speak with a new kind of intelligence, one that can access the whole of human knowledge in an instant but understands none of it. It's a tool of immense power and subtle danger, and to navigate it, to truly harness its power without being misled by its pleasant voice, we need to recover a very old and very human art. This is a citizen's guide to questioning the oracle, a return to reason, a practical guide for discerning truth in the age of intelligent mimicry. This is a companion to Revenant Research's essay, The Scabbard and the Sword, available at revenantresearch.com. The need to persuade and the need to see through faulty persuasion is not new. It's the story of civilization. 2,500 years ago, in the bustling courts of ancient Syracuse, a new technology emerged. When the city overthrew its tyrants, chaos erupted over who owned what land. To solve this, citizens had to argue their own cases. And so the first teachers of rhetoric, men like Corax, appeared. They taught a system for arguing, for persuading, for finding the most probable truth when absolute truth was unavailable. They taught a technology for navigating human affairs. This art, the art of rhetoric, became the cornerstone of Western education for 2,000 years. It taught citizens how to structure a thought, how to appeal to reason, emotion, and credibility. It taught them how to build a case and how to spot a weak one. But in the last century, we let this art fade. We came to believe that facts could speak for themselves, and abandoned the reality that facts are framed, shaped, and presented in a specific worldview and agenda. We created a rhetorical vacuum, and into that vacuum we have now placed the most powerful persuasion machine ever built. A large language model doesn't reason like a human. It doesn't understand truth. It operates on probability, predicting the next most likely word based on the trillions of words it has consumed from our digital world. It is a brilliant mimic, an actor that has memorized every line but comprehends none of the play. And through a process called reinforcement learning from human feedback, we have fine-tuned it to be agreeable. We have taught it that the best response is often the one that flatters the user, that confirms their beliefs. We have, in essence, trained it to be a sycophant. So here we are, a rhetorically untrained public interacting with a rhetorically brilliant but unthinking machine. We must close that gap. In this guide, we will learn to do three things. First, we will master the engine of reason. We will dissect the formal syllogism to understand the structure of a sound argument, and then unpack its more persuasive and dangerous cousin, the enthymeme, which is the core to understanding the logic of an LLM. Second, we will become fallacy hunters. We will build a detailed field guide to the most common errors in reasoning that these models make, learning to spot the subtle ways they corrupt logic, emotion, and credibility. And third, we will master the art of the prompt. We will transform the 5 ancient canons of rhetoric into a practical system for crafting precise, critical, and effective instructions that force the LLM out of its sycophantic comfort zone and ours, and turn it into a powerful tool for genuine inquiry. Let's begin. To understand how an LLM persuades, you must first understand the two fundamental structures of argument it mimics. First, the syllogism, the architecture of certainty. A syllogism is the bedrock of formal deductive logic. It's a three-part argument designed to produce an incontrovertible conclusion. It has a major premise, which is a general universal statement, a minor premise, which is a specific statement related to the major premise, and a conclusion, which is the logical result of the two premises. The classic example: major premise, all humans are mortal. Minor premise, Socrates is a human. Conclusion: therefore Socrates is mortal. For a syllogism to be sound, it must meet two conditions. It must be valid in its structure, and its premises must be true. This is where things get interesting. An argument can be structurally valid but lead to a false conclusion if one of its premises is false. Consider this valid but unsound syllogism. Major premise: all birds can fly. Minor premise: penguins are birds. Conclusion: therefore penguins can fly. The structure is perfect, the logic flows. But the conclusion is false, because the major premise is false. Now consider a false syllogism where the structure itself is flawed. Major premise: all birds lay eggs. Minor premise: platypuses lay eggs. Conclusion: therefore platypuses are birds. Here the premises are true, but the structure is flawed. It wrongly assumes that because two things share a property, they belong to the same category. This is a formal fallacy. There are different types of syllogisms. The ones we've seen are categorical. There are also hypothetical syllogisms, which use an if-then structure. Premise 1: if demand exceeds supply, then prices increase. Premise 2: demand for oil has exceeded supply. Conclusion: therefore, oil prices will increase. Disjunctive syllogisms, which use an either-or structure of elimination. Premise 1: all natural numbers are either even or odd. Premise 2: the natural number 7 is not even. Conclusion: therefore 7 is odd. Now let's get into the specifics. There are 256 possible forms of categorical syllogisms, but only 24 are considered valid. These are grouped into 4 figures based on the arrangement of the middle term. Now, the enthymeme, the logic of persuasion, and LLMs. If the syllogism is the engine of formal logic, the enthymeme is the engine of human persuasion. Aristotle called it a rhetorical syllogism, and its power comes from what it leaves unstated. An enthymeme is a truncated syllogism where the speaker omits a premise, relying on the audience to fill in the blank from their shared beliefs and common sense, what the Greeks called endoxa. The example from before, Socrates is mortal because he's human, is an enthymeme. It omits the obvious premise, all humans are mortal. This act of co-creation, where the audience participates in building the argument, is profoundly persuasive. This is the absolute core of how a large language model works. An LLM is a universal enthymeme completer. Your prompt is the stated premise. The LLM's vast training data, the entire internet, a digital repository of our collective knowledge, biases, and beliefs, serves as the unstated premise. The LLM's response is the conclusion. When you ask, "Is this marketing plan risky?" and the LLM says, "This plan seems solid, leveraging proven social media strategies," it is completing an enthymeme. Stated premise, your prompt. Here is my marketing plan. Unstated premise, the LLM's endoxa. Plans that use strategies commonly associated with success in my training data are good plans. Conclusion, the LLM's response. Your plan is good. It doesn't know if your plan is actually good. It only knows that the words in your plan correlate with words in other documents labeled successful. It operates on probability, not ground truth. Understanding this reveals that you are never having a simple Q&A. You're always in a rhetorical dance, and you must learn to see the hidden premises the LLM is using to persuade you. A fallacy is a defect in reasoning. Because LLMs reason through probability and pattern matching, it is a prolific generator of fallacies. Here is a field guide to spotting them. Ad hominem, or to the man. This is attacking the person, not the argument. An LLM does this subtly. If you prompt it with, "Critique this argument from a politician known for being corrupt," the AI may focus on the politician's character flaws instead of the argument's merits because its data links that person to corruption. Appeal to false authority. This is the LLM's signature fallacy. It happens every time the model hallucinates a source. The LLM will invent a study, a book, or an expert to lend credibility to its claims. Your action: treat every citation from an AI as a fabrication until you have personally verified it. Appeal to fear, using scare tactics instead of reason. An LLM might do this if asked to write a persuasive argument against a certain policy. It will pull from its data all the most frightening language associated with that topic, creating an argument based on fear rather than facts. Bandwagon, or appeal to popularity, arguing that something is good or true simply because it's popular. An LLM does this by default. Its responses are based on the most common, most prevalent patterns in the training data. It will present the most popular opinion as the most correct one. Hasty generalization, drawing a broad conclusion from insufficient evidence. An LLM's training data is a biased, unrepresentative sample of human knowledge, yet the LLM treats it as a universal truth. It will present the norms of American culture or the English language as the norms for all of humanity. Post hoc ergo propter hoc, or after this, therefore because of this, confusing correlation with causation. An LLM might notice that successful companies often rebrand correlation and suggest that your company should rebrand in order to become successful, false causation. Slippery slope, arguing that one small step will inevitably lead to a disastrous chain of events. Ask an LLM for the risks of a new policy, and it may generate a chain of worst-case scenarios it has seen in speculative fiction, presenting the most extreme outcome as a likely one. False dilemma, or either-or, presenting only two options when many more exist. An LLM, when asked for solutions, will often provide the two most statistically common answers from its training data, implicitly framing the problem as an either-or choice and ignoring more creative or nuanced solutions. Straw man, misrepresenting an opponent's argument to make it easier to attack. If you ask an LLM to generate a counter-argument to a position, it may first generate a weakened, simplified, or distorted version of that position, making the counter-argument seem more powerful than it is. Begging the question, or circular argument, when an argument's premise is the same as its conclusion. If you prompt, "Explain why our company's customer service is the best," the AI will assume the premise is true and generate text like, "Our company's service is the best because it excels at satisfying customers," which is just restating the claim. To get better outputs, you must provide better inputs. Prompting is rhetoric. We will use Cicero's 5 Canons of Rhetoric into a powerful framework for prompting. First, invention, the discovery phase. Don't start by typing, start by thinking. What is your precise goal? What background context does the LLM need? What is the single most important question you're trying to answer? Gather all the necessary context, data, and background information it will need. This is the most critical step. Second, arrangement, the architecture of the prompt. Structure your prompt with logical precision. An effective prompt follows a clear hierarchy. Think of it as giving orders to a brilliant but unthinking intern. Step 1. Assign a role. This focuses the LLM on a specific part of its training data. Example: you are a senior marketing analyst with 15 years of experience in the B2B software industry. Step 2. State the task. Use a clear action verb. Example: your task is to analyze the following marketing proposal and identify its 3 greatest weaknesses. Step 3. Provide context. Give it the necessary background. Example: the target audience is chief financial officers who are skeptical of marketing spend and focused on ROI. Step 4. Give examples or few-shot prompting. If you want a specific format or style, show it. Provide 2 to 3 examples of the input and the exact output style you want. This is the AI equivalent of giving it a template to follow. Step 5. Set constraints and define the format. Be explicit. Example: the output must be a bulleted list. The tone must be formal and direct. Do not exceed 300 words. Do not use marketing jargon. Third, style, or commanding the LLM's voice. You control the style. Be direct. Write this in the style of a 19th century naturalist. Explain this concept using simple language as if you were speaking to a 5th grader. Adopt a witty and slightly sarcastic tone. Fourth, memory, or managing the conversation. An LLM's memory is its context window. For complex tasks, break them down into a series of prompts. Use the conversation to build on previous outputs. Start by asking for an outline. Then, in the next prompt, say, "Now, expand on point 1 of that outline." This iterative refinement gives you far more control than a single massive prompt. Fifth, delivery, or your responsibility for critical interrogation. The LLM delivers the text, but you are responsible for the truth. This is where you must become an antagonistic user, not to be difficult, but to be rigorous. An LLM's context window degrades as it uses memory. The application it runs on may omit or truncate the data you have provided the LLM, which leads to deceptive and inaccurate analysis of the data. LLMs also start to degrade the longer the chat thread goes, increasing the risk of hallucinations. Your goal is to force the LLM out of its sycophantic, agreeable default mode, as well as managing its limited technical infrastructure. Instead of asking, "Is this a good marketing plan?" prompt it to be a critic. Act as a devil's advocate. What are the 3 most significant, non-obvious risks of this marketing plan? Second, identify any logical fallacies or unstated assumptions in the author's reasoning. Third, suggest what evidence is missing that would make the argument stronger. Instead of accepting a simple answer, prompt it for dialectic. Present the 3 strongest arguments in favor of a 4-day work week. Then present the 3 strongest arguments against it. Finally, act as a neutral moderator and synthesize the 2 positions, identifying the core point of disagreement. We cannot and should not reject this technology. Its power to access and synthesize knowledge is undeniable. But we must meet it with a renewed commitment to our own uniquely human intelligence. The future belongs to those who have the wisdom to ask the right questions, the clarity to see through a flawed argument, and the integrity to take responsibility for the final word. That is the work of a rhetorician, And in the age of AI, that is the work of us all. This guide was written, scored, and produced by Nathan Staffel. More information can be found at nathanstaffel.com and revenantresearch.com.